executive chairman of the British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines. Thank you for coming.
It's a great pleasure
on
to
a
be
Saturday.
here. Say so.
Okay. Well, the news, the historic defeat of Brexit rejected by the House of Commons recently happened, followed by the no confidence vote. Although it's miles away from the Philippines, what is its impact in the region and here in the Philippines?
Well, look, I think the first thing is to discuss Brexit in the UK context. The actual defeat was actually widely forecast. Actually, the key was the size of the defeat, which is actually 230 votes. And really, what are the next steps? And what will actually happen in terms of, because obviously the UK is scheduled to leave the European Union by the 29th of March.
Correct.
I think, and I can talk about what I think might, I don't want to speculate, but I can give sort of various scenarios. But to answer your specific question, I think it has two potential impacts. The first has been going on actually for quite a while, which is that companies anyhow have been looking at Southeast Asia and of course the Philippines to boost their trade and investment. And that was happening prior to Brexit, but obviously there's an increased focus for companies to find other markets. And then the other thing I would say is, what does it do to the policy of the UK as we're in this stage where we're not sure of what the final result will be in terms of then the trade policy? So I think it's two impacts.
Well, what the trade value between the UK and the Philippines is about $898.25 million. What's the trend? Is it
Yeah,
growing?
the trend is growing. I think if you look at, I mean, if I take the Philippines, and you know, I've been here for 15 years now.
Wow.
I married my wife 30 years ago,
Wow.
so I've been coming to the Philippines since 1984.
Okay.
So I've seen the country change and develop tremendously. I think that it's fair to say that the Philippines traditionally look towards the US. I mean, that's a fair comment, and the US, and it still
Yes.
has a very large partnership, and of course now it's growing also with other nations in Asia, China and Japan. But I think over the last years, driven by, I'd like to say, the embassy, I have to give all credit to our ambassadors. Asif Ahmed was the ambassador when I was here, as the chamber. Now we have the ambassador Danny Pruz. Both of them are very proactive, helping in terms of the commercial space, and of course the chamber itself. So we've, I think, raised the profile both ways. Philippine companies interested in the UK, and obviously UK companies interested here. And let me give you a couple of examples of Philippine companies going to the UK now. The most recent is Jollibee, who just opened in October.
Perfect.
So anybody who wants to get their Chicken Joy and other Jollibee favourites,
Yes.
is now available, and they have plans to expand. And then let's also talk about Andrew Tan's company, who obviously purchased White and Mackay, which was a Scottish distillery company. And then, of course, we've had Mondonison buying Quorn, which is the meat substitute business. So that's a great example of inward investment to the UK. If I now come the other way, trade and investment and people looking at the UK is continuing to grow. I mean, a very quick example, in the 4 years that we've done the project with the UK government, which is to promote, it's called the Overseas Business Partner, we've had over 2,000 companies expressing an interest in looking at the Philippines. And we've also working closely with the Philippine Embassy in London, which is now Ambassador Lactameo, with the commercial section headed by Michel Sanchez. And the reason I say that is that we still have a lot to do to keep communicating to British companies the opportunities here. I think we've made an inroad, and I think we've made an inroad here with Philippine consumers who now can get UK products. but we still have a long way to go.
So if you describe which of these sectors you are really eyeing to, can you name at least the top 4 priorities in terms
Sure.
of the sector?
Let me first of all talk about one which I think is going to develop. That's your infrastructure program.
Okay, yeah.
And let's also talk about the Philippine economic team, led by Secretary Dominguez and Secretary Lopez. He went there on the 25th of September, and that got people very excited. I mean, yes, we've been talking about ourselves, but obviously to have the Secretary of Finance present, along with Secretary of Transportation, Secretary of Detail, I mean, it makes a great impact. So I think engineering companies, let's not forget, a British company was involved in the recent development of the Cebu airport. So I think your infrastructure projects, both on airport, ports, roads, there's a lot of British engineering and talent. That's a new area of not new, but because of the build, they're going to be interested. In terms of the other segments, number one for us is your consumer market. Filipinos are great consumers. It's a growing adult population. I think there's a great chance for UK goods. We see a lot of opportunities in terms of IT. And then I would also talk about education. Education is a very broad term, though, because it can be both.
It can be knowledge management, and it could
Correct.
be...
Yeah. So, but we've had a lot of interest from schools, from colleges to see how they can work, because also they know, of course, that the Philippines has a great focus on education, and there has been, again, I think, all credit to the embassy and so forth. There has been a lot more interest in UK universities and education. And then we shouldn't forget, companies like the environmental, we have a lot of talent in that. We have a lot of innovation in the UK. And I think people are going to look at those opportunities here.
What is it that you are looking for in ease of doing business?
I think it's in terms of speed and timing, right? I mean, when we've had these discussions before, of course, the standard that a lot of people refer to, of course, is Singapore. You can go to Singapore and register in 24 hours. I think that what we're looking to do is to cut that down. I think also what gets people confused here are the multiple levels of involvement. Let's not forget, we have local government, LGUs, you have, as you've mentioned, national institutions, SEC, and so forth. And then I think also we want to see how that can facilitate through bringing goods in and getting the goods to be moved. That's why I mentioned to you, I've always actually, depending on the businesses, recommend that people get a Filipino partner, which we assist in the search, because obviously that allows the company sending it to focus on what they do best, and the Philippine partner can do best. So since I've been traveling here, or coming since 1984, I think it's fair to say that the Metro Manila, but places outside, I mean, let's not forget, we've led trade missions to Davao, Iloilo. I mean, these cities have also developed significantly, right? I mean, look.
Are you promoting that to British businessmen also?
We are.
Not only here in Metro Manila, but in other parts of
We are
the
actually,
country?
and it's part of also...
Which of these new cities are you eyeing?
Well, we've actually, as I said, so we've done 2 so far, Davao. We've also obviously been to Iloilo. We're also now looking at Clark for this year. And the other thing I just wanted to mention, because I think this is a very important point, one of our philosophies at the Chamber is building relationships. And we had great support when we went to Davao in 2017 from the Davao Chamber of Commerce, from the local government. And still today, I've just been invited to attend an event by the Davao Chamber. And that's important because we think it's very important. You just don't go once and forget. You build it up consistently. Similarly, Iloilo, the mayor there was incredibly helpful. He just invited me to their festival. So I have to see if I find time to go to both, but I would like to. And we also discuss it with our business people. And we've been, it's good to see that businesses have gone there and started doing business. So it does 2 things. One, I think it supports the 10-point plan of the government, but at the same time, it also allows us to show to British business people and companies there are other opportunities. And by the way, that's important not just for people who may be new to the Philippines, but also for regional companies and companies who still have have an existing business here, but maybe focused or centric towards Metro Manila. And in terms of our traffic and everything else, it would be good to get it to be diverse.
What's your take on these policy reforms, including the train and the trabajo?
Sure. So I think Train 1 did a lot of things. Of course, there were increases, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of motor vehicles and some other aspects. Train 2, I think, has more challenges, if I'm being very... And I think this is what I'd say. There is no perfect law. I don't think... Whether it's, I think the UK can clearly say that from Brexit. And I think what I would say in terms of Train 2, that the tax incentives and the PACER zone are very important to you. And I've been at various meetings where those views have been expressed. Now, I always argue that there is a need to consider those issues that people have established. I think in your first report it said that investments were down, or potential investments, by 41% in the PACER. PACER has been a very great benefit. We worked closely with the former Director General. We also know the current Director General. And I would say that needs serious consideration. I always believe in everything we should try to get a win-win. That, fine, you may not get completely everything, but take some things on board that people can live with. But I do think there does need serious consideration for those companies in the foreign investment, because we are, and I think that's something about the British Chamber and the joint chambers, which obviously is the American Chamber, the European Chamber, all of which we support. We all want more business to be done here.
Interesting. Now, we're looking at the Philippine economic growth to be still at the 6.3, 6.4 range. Do you think it can be sustained, and are you positive that it will continue to grow compared to the other ASEAN countries?
Yeah, I'm very positive. In fact, just to sort of highlight, because obviously, as I've said to you, I do this project and I really want to drive to get companies to come here. You know, the UK growth rate, I think, is now below 1%. So I do think 6% is sustainable, 6 plus. I think that, let's bear in mind that a lot of the infrastructure projects that the government wishes to initiate and are starting, those benefits will be actually seen, obviously, in maybe 2, 3, even 4 years' time. So that could even be another development in it and boost to the overall growth rate. So I think that, yes, I'm very positive. I've seen great developments here. We fully endorse the infrastructure program of the government.
Can Filipino entrepreneurs learn from British businessmen? And vice versa.
Okay, well, I think the first thing you learn is don't do a vote, don't have a Brexit.
Okay.
But I think,
we have the ASEAN. That's our.
well, I don't think we've got the same arrangements. I think two things culturally, and in a way I can cross, you know, because I've run a company here. I think Filipinos are very, very talented people. I think that you are very nice people, and I think sometimes you can be more straightforward. I think sometimes that may be perceived in your culture as being direct is a little bit rude. It's not. But for us, culturally, being straightforward or being to the point. On the other hand, I think the UK can learn from Philippine businessmen, because I generally think here people are if you get a great businessman, and I've got one particular friend, and he's really been tremendous to me, right? And I think the friendship is something outstanding. I mean, Filipinos take friendship to a level that I've not seen.
Interesting.
And I think, look, as you know, what's the key focus of the Philippines? It's family, it's friends, it's
That's
being
right.
together. Look, I was on holiday in the US. I mean, with my wife's family, there's 20 of us. And more, of course. I mean, 20 was just one group. So I think we can learn that way. So from the UK side to you, maybe be more direct, more straightforward. Not rude, I'm not saying that, but just to the point. And if you say something no, it's no. I mean, and then from the UK side, I think really the way you develop relationships and friendships that really go out and beyond is really
Interesting.
outstanding for me.
What are your top three, tips to entrepreneurs as they, grow their business?
Well, first of all, I should say that I'm not really an entrepreneur myself. I've always worked for large companies. But I think a couple, actually. I think the first is, number one, ask advice. You may have a great idea, but you can learn from other people. And if we at the British Chamber can help, then we're most willing to help in any way we can. Number two, of course, is persistency. Great ideas will fall away unless you follow through with it. And the third is energy, and the third actually I would say celebrate. I think there's always a key to keep everybody involved and to enjoy that success, right? I think sometimes we don't stop enough and enjoy our success.
Wow, that's perfect. That's a perfect ending to the conversation.